Today we're talking about how to develop your inner trust, that knowing. So I want to go back to just set the foundation a little bit. Our series for January is the Alchemy of Conscious Creation. And let's just remind ourselves what alchemy is. Alchemy, I got a definition, an actual definition for you. A seemingly magical process of transformation, creation, or combination. Transformation, creation, or combination. I love the concept of us being blended beings. That's something that's taught through the Abraham teachings. We're blended beings. We are spiritual and physical. That's a magical combination. Think of the magic and miracles that comes from knowing that. So there's 3 levels of conscious creation that I've taught for a long time. And I came to this from observing people struggling to be conscious creators and my own struggles in life to be that. When it's flowing wonderfully and when it's not. You know, I always want to know, gee, what's getting in the way? Let's clear it out. Have more fun. Be more of a conscious creator. We came here to be blended beings. We came here for that magical process. So if it's not happening for us, it's not because we don't have that as our divine birthright, as the reading that Tom gave for us just now. That's a power inherent for us, in us, through us. And if we're not using it, please, please, please stop and ask yourself in any moment, why am I not using that? Why am I not aligning with this process of conscious creation? Why am I defaulting to unconscious, haphazard thinking that creates, as in the reading, as it explains so clearly, careless, reckless results? And those careless results hurt us and others, and those reckless results can cause harm. It can cause harm as in a traffic accident. It could cause harm as in a child being in the presence of a predator. That if we had paid attention to inner knowing, we might have picked up on that, or at least the child would have, and we would have listened to that child just didn't want to be with that person, but we kept talking him into it, right? It can be innocent things too. It can be innocent things in nature. We can be aligned with that magical process. And I felt that this morning. I have painted buntings in my backyard. But when do I see them? It's up to them, right? They have to reveal themselves. Well, for the very first time, I've seen them multiple times in the yard. The beautiful male went to my feeder. Never seen it at the feeder. And it chose to do that while I was sitting there having my morning coffee, where I could take in its complete splendor, right? It wasn't just peeking out of a bush, that's wonderful too, right? So that's a conscious creation. Because I didn't say, painted bunting, come to me. But we can do that, we can ask that. I have asked birds to come and let me see them, and quickly they will. Not in that moment always, sometimes, but soon they will. Maybe it's the next day, but still, I get to see them. But I was in that moment opening myself to fully feel the aliveness. That was the word I used. The aliveness of Divine Creator. The beauty of the world. I was wanting to see the beauty of our beloved Source expressing in this world. And then I saw this flash of red, which I first thought, well, that's going to be a cardinal. And then I realized it was tiny. It wasn't a cardinal. And then it flew right to the feeder. And I saw, oh, that's just that beautiful red. And then there's the yellow and the green and the blue, right? And Spencer shared with me this morning, he kept getting an inner knowing when one of us was pulling up that might need help to carry something in. I was one, thank you. I think he did that for Lori, right? And he paid attention to that inner knowing. Now, if he hadn't paid attention, nobody was going to be upset. I mean, it's not his job to do that. And nobody would have been in harm, but we might have dropped something, or we might have just, turned our back a little bit or something. It wouldn't have been anything awful. That's another innocent example. But then think of the joy of me having the painted bunting experience. It's a completely innocent aligning with the flow of conscious creation. Sure brought me a lot of joy. It brought Spencer joy to be of service. It brought me joy that he helped carry things in because I was a little nervous. I was like, I don't want to drop anything. And I think it probably did for Lori too. I didn't ask her, but probably, yeah. So do you see how it can be little things and it can be big things? It can be the things that tell us to drive a different direction and we miss a traffic jam, which also could be we missed possibly being in the accident that caused it, right? It can also be applied in very practical ways in business. So I'm going to read from the book I'm using, which is also in your program, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen and Lakhiani. We're using that book this month. Today we're going to talk about a concept he teaches called consciousness engineering. Now he's an engineer, he's trained as an engineer. He's the founder and owner of, or at least co-owner of, Mind Valley Academy. And he was an engineer for Microsoft and gave that up to explore something like meditation, right? And here's the story of that. Let me explain what he means by consciousness engineering. This is how he explains it. He says, your tool for influencing the world and creating your own growth is a practice I call consciousness engineering. Think of it as the interface between you and the culturescape around you. You decide what to let in or reject. You're engineering how your consciousness is shaped and influenced. So if somebody's feeling critical of us, we can feel that energy, can't we? We do that. Sometimes people in our group forget that. They think if they don't say it out loud, we don't feel it, but we do. Most of us here are very aware and sensing of energy. So if somebody's feeling critical, we'll feel that energy. And then we have a choice. Consciousness engineering. We get to choose whether to let that in or reject it. Not reject the person, reject that energy dynamic. Right? We can take it in and take it to heart and feel bad about ourselves and then put ourselves through all that drama. Or we can say, well, you know what? That person is probably just processing something the best they know how. And sometimes we all process beautifully and we take it in, we feel something, we say, no, I'm not going to project that energy onto somebody else. I'm going to receive that as my gift of knowing, my gift of guidance, and I'm going to go within and I'm going to get clarity about that guidance. I'm feeling this emotion, beloved source. You're obviously giving me an indicator of something I need to be aware of more clearly, more fully, more deeply, more expansively. So I'm going to go inside and make that inquiry, not outside, not to the other person, how dare you act that way? No, that's not processing. Processing is an inner, it's getting really clear with your inner knowing. This is happening for me, not to me. I live in a world created by beloved source to bring itself into expression of love, truth, and beauty. And I can flow with that or I can resist that. I have the free will to choose that. If I'm resisting it, I'm going to have some emotional wobbles, a negative feeling. It's meant to tell me something. Maybe I'm about to step into harm's way and I need to listen. Maybe I am limiting my perception of someone and I'm not seeing the beauty of that person because of something that has nothing to do with them. Something that I've been carrying with them my whole life. We all do that, guys. We all do that. Little bit, mostly, but sometimes bigger. We want to love ourselves through that, because if we don't love ourselves through that, it is so painful to reject our own self, because we're actually rejecting our divine connection. And that is so painful. That's when we project it, because it's so painful. We got to do something. It's just too painful to be disconnected from our source. We're not really disconnected, but we feel disconnected. We're not allowing the love to flow in, but it's right here. It never leaves. It never ever leaves. So trusting these little whispers of inner knowing, even the innocent ones, like the birds and the helping somebody, that, oh, somebody just pulled up, and go look and see. Who needs a doorbell, right? So when we trust those, we're developing our confirmation so that we can more fully trust when things are a little harder to discern. What makes them harder to discern? The intensity of a need, the intensity of emotional pain for ourselves, for a loved one. That makes it harder for us to be clear in our knowing, doesn't it? Yeah. So if we can just start practicing it on the small things, then when the big things hit, it's natural. We have created that neural pathway, that's our go-to response. Our go-to response isn't we freak out and say something we regret, do something we regret. Our automatic response becomes go within, be still, and know. The I am presence is here. The I am presence is always with me. The I am presence will guide me. And in fact, we will then see that this thing that we could get upset about, that we're feeling the emotional wobble, the dip in our vibration, is absolutely here to reveal something to us. It's not doing something negative to us. It's revealing something important to us, for our well-being, or for the well-being of a loved one. So I want to read a little story here from Vishen's journey, how he wrote this book. This is a very practical way to apply consciousness engineering. And in this example, it's a way he applied it in business. Okay? Here we go. He's talking about going from a computer engineer to being a person who understands, explores, researches, and teaches consciousness engineering himself, and now through Mind Valley Academy brings just amazing teachers for the rest of the world, for all of us to enjoy. So he says he went from a broke failure to a super performer in 10 months using consciousness engineering. This is how he discovered it. So he says, I got into personal growth because I was going through a tough period. In 2001, fresh out of college, I moved to Silicon Valley to launch a startup. I was 25. This was a time before any of the other dozen or so programs that were funding aspiring young engineers and their .com dreams. So money, especially for 25-year-olds, was not easy to come by. I took what savings I had, borrowed some money from my dad, and went out to try my luck. My timing, in a word, sucked. A few months after moving to Silicon Valley, the .com bubble burst. I remember reading that 14,000 people had been laid off in April 2001. 14,000 people in your industry, in your local area, in your industry. That's a lot of people, isn't it? Pink slip parties, where the jobless go to network and drink themselves into comfort, became the norm. Broke and desperate, I sent my resume to every job I could find on Craigslist, but got 0 replies. Funds were so low, I couldn't afford to rent a room, much less an apartment. So I rented a couch. Can you imagine renting a couch? He rented a couch. And it wasn't even a 3-seater couch, it was a 2-seater. So my legs dangled off at night when I went to bed. I was renting it from a Berkeley college student who was trying to optimize his finances by renting out his least favorite piece of furniture. That's pretty, it's pretty good inspiration, isn't it? On that couch in Berkeley and on the radiator beside it lay my entire life. All my clothes, my books, my laptop, and my shattered dreams. It was humbling to be living in a college town as a graduate with a computer engineering degree and realizing that most of the college students there were living in better conditions than I was. Finally, one day, after another mind-numbing bout of sending my resumes to jobs on Craigslist, I got a reply. It was from a company looking for people who would call law firms to sell case management software. It was a dialing for dollars job, and it was straight commission. If I didn't sell, I didn't eat. The economy was so bad that startups could get away with paying no base salary. I knew nothing about sales and marketing, but it was the only job I could get, so I took it. On my first week in the office, we were assigned territories to cover. Mine was San Antonio, Texas. Work looked like this. I'd have to go to the San Francisco Public Library, get a copy of the San Antonio Yellow Pages, look up law firms, and start dialing every attorney from A to Z to find one bored enough to listen to my pitch without hanging up on me. Since my boss doubted that any lawyer in Texas would be able to pronounce the name Vishen, I became Mr. Vincent Lakhiani for convenience. My first few months on the job, I earned around $2,500 a month in commissions, hardly enough to survive in the Bay Area. But it's often when we're feeling down that we end up taking a step toward our next level of personal growth. Have you found that to be true in your life? That thing we think is happening to us is happening for us because it's leading us in a direction we might not have gone if things were mediocre. They had to get a little below mediocre, right? Okay. Bored and mildly depressed, I began searching online for classes to take to help get my mind off the drudgery of my job. I can't remember exactly what I typed into Google. Maybe hope, maybe success, or maybe why does life have to suck so bad? And that's when I saw it. I noticed a class on meditation and intuition. It was in Los Angeles and seemed interesting, especially since the lecturer was in pharma sales and spoke about how these methods had allowed her to rapidly expand her sales volume. Sold. I rather impulsively decided to fly down and take the class. When I showed up, I was the only student there. Meditation wasn't as popular then as it is now. I completed the entire 2-day class in 1 day and flew back to San Francisco that night. Immediately, I began applying some of the techniques I'd learned, one of which was a simple technique to meditate and get myself into the alpha state of mind. Alpha is the brainwave frequency common in meditation once you're in a relaxed state. People who advocate this type of meditation say that alpha puts you highly in tune with your intuition, your creativity, and your problem-solving abilities. A key part of what I had learned was listening to my inner voice or intuition. I practiced this when making my phone calls. I stopped calling every lawyer from A to Z in the Yellow Pages, as my coworkers were doing. Instead, I would go into a relaxed, meditative level of mind, run my finger down the listings, and call the ones where I felt an impulse. The impulse often felt like guessing, but I heeded it. I realized this makes no logical sense, but I discovered that listening to my impulse somehow caused me to call lawyers more likely to buy from me. My closing rate started rising rapidly. How much of a change can you expect from studying meditation? Another way to look at it is practicing mindfulness. I certainly didn't expect much, other than learning to relax and de-stress better. But by the end of the first week, after flying back from LA, I had my best ever sales week. I assumed it was an aberration and that it wouldn't last, but I closed 2 deals the next week and the next, and it got better. A month later, I leveled up to closing 3 deals. Listening to my intuition seemed to triple the odds of my calling a receptive lawyer. Other things improved too. I started feeling happier and more positive about my days. My confidence and my rapport with people at work improved. I credit these to the fact that I was now meditating for about 15 to 30 minutes every day, listening to my intuition and visualizing myself closing deals with ease. Then I started using another technique I'd learned from another class, a simple empathy technique for connecting more effectively with people. Before speaking to a lawyer, I'd tell myself that I would be able to connect with my potential client at a subconscious level, have empathy for his or her needs, know the right things to say at the right moment, and then only if this was a software that would genuinely benefit the lawyer's firm, close the sale. See the application of empathy there? Mm-hmm. Yeah. While in meditation, I would visualize the lawyer in front of me and imagine beaming genuine kindness and compassion toward him or her. I would end the 3-minute visualization with a mental affirmation that we would close the deal if it was the best interest of all parties involved. Again, I saw a massive boost in my sales. Soon I was closing more than anyone in the company, and so, 26 years old and with no prior sales experience, I got promoted 3 times in the next 4 months and was made director of sales. In September of 2002, just 9 months after I joined the company, my boss sent me to New York City to head up the company's New York office. I continued to grow within the company. I also continued experimenting, adjusting, and refining my meditation practice. And with each refinement, my abilities at work seemed to grow. Soon I was doing the jobs of 2 people: business development manager, meaning he was managing the company's advertising on Google AdWords, and heading the New York office, excelling in both roles. My salary had tripled in a few short months. At the time, I couldn't explain why all of this success was happening. I just knew that what I was doing worked. So mindfulness, meditation, cultivating a spiritual practice of preparing yourself before the day. And I always recommend, again, before going to bed, preparing your sleep to empower you, sets you up to go out in the world and be a conscious creator. Isn't that a more fun journey? It would have been instead just, he spent how many years on sleeping on somebody's couch, right? It wouldn't have made him a terrible person, but look how much more he accomplished. And he practiced it, he experimented with it so that he could improve it and then teach it to others. So you hear me say a lot in our group that I believe we're all spiritual leaders because we're leaders in our own world. We are spiritual beings having human form, but we're still living spiritual realm. We're conscious creators, at least we're meant to be. I hope we will choose to be as much as we can. There will be days where we'll be less conscious than others. That's part of the journey. But we'll learn from it, like he did. He went through a period where he was not very conscious. And then he learned to be conscious. And then he paid attention to what was a flow state and what was not. What was that beautiful flow of energy? He had the heart to make sure when he listened to that guidance, he used it with integrity for everyone. Yeah. We had some meetings recently, business meetings, and we talked about that. We need always to bring funds in to our center to create the vision, to go out into the world and create the vision we want to enhance life with, personally, for us collectively, and out in the world, locally and beyond. We want to do that with integrity, of course, because that's who we are. That's who all of us are, and it's just such a beautiful experience to work with you all this way. It's really wonderful. So one last thing before we go into a process. I want to address what gets in the way. What gets in the way of being a conscious creator and following that knowing? Well, part of what gets in the way is there's the levels of first we know, we have this sense of knowing. We know something, and we heed that, and we follow it. After that, we start to get to a level where we become one with it. Become one with the beauty of life and the life force around us, and the energy coming from others that we know is Divine Creator expressing through them. We're going to talk about that next week. And then the third level is we start living from it. We live from that oneness. One of the things that gets in the way of living from it is we don't go through the step of becoming one with. We get to the knowing, and that's very exciting, and then we think that's all we ever need to accomplish, and we're done. Check. We're done. We're spiritual. Nothing more to do. But see, it's a moment to moment being one with. And if we don't take that opportunity, we miss the greatest joy of life, that oneness with Divine Creator. Because we're this human person, and we're using our intellect more than we're using our knowing, because we're not getting into that flow state. And we all know that flow state, don't we? It's a really wonderful way to live, isn't it? So we don't want to bypass the being one with and try to live from it without cultivating that too. So we're going to talk about that next week. Some other things that get in the way is we don't want to face the emotion. We think when we have a negative emotion that either there's something wrong with us, or there's something wrong with the situation, the dynamic with a single person or a group of people that created that emotion, that negative emotion. And we say, oh, I don't want to feel that. So we don't allow ourselves to fully be, just like lay it down, like just set it down and just kind of observe it, just observe it. It's not actually going to hurt us. It's there to inform us. And when we don't open to that, we disconnect. We disconnect from our intuition, our inner knowing. We disconnect from the oneness that allows us to live from that beautiful flow state. We also want to be aware of beliefs that at one time served us that we've outgrown. If we think that that belief makes us a bad person, we sometimes tend to not examine it, because it feels so awful to think badly of ourselves. When we don't feel self-love, we are truly disconnecting from our source, because our source feels only love for us. So we sometimes have a thought or an emotion, and that thought or that emotion causes us to not feel that alignment, and we think it's the thought or the emotion that's bad, so we push it away. But it's not. It's revealing to us a habitual thinking process that has, based on maybe some feelings that don't feel good, we're trying to manage the best we knew a few years ago or as a child even, and we're still using it. And so we want to stay open, like this man did. He stayed open to something that made no sense to him. At that time, he had no friends in his life that said, you need to go do this is awesome. But he had an inner knowing. And he followed it, and it kept getting better and better and deeper and stronger. And there was more clarity and more certainty with it. So he just kept building on it, building on it, building on it. It's that little energy vortex that keeps building and building, and then it brings more to us that matches it. And it just gets better and better. Life gets more joyful, easeful. And that's what we're all here for, isn't it? So let's go into a meditation process. And I'm going to do something a little different in the next 3 lessons as we focus on knowing, being, and living from, thank you, I'm going to read something that's called Renew the Foundation, and I'm going to just guide you through it as like a breathing meditation as I read it. All right? So let's all take a deep breath. Exhale with sound. Another deep breath. Exhale with sound. And now a deep, soft breath. And softly, gently, let everything just dissipate out of your body. That is not pure light, pure love. I invite you to picture a candle that's lit, has a beautiful flickering flame. Just picture that candle, the stillness and the peacefulness of a beautiful candle. Take a breath. In this moment, I acknowledge the absolute creator of the entire universe. This absolute energy, absolute intelligence, the absolute presence in and through all of creation is all that there is. I recognize the divine intelligence in all things and relax into the knowing that I am part of this intelligence and all of divine creation. I am a divine creation. Take a breath, please. Today, as I contemplate the perfection of the divine intelligence, I find myself in complete awe and gratitude, for I know that I am an individualized expression of this power and presence. Scripture confirms that knowingness by its statement that I am made in the image and likeness of it. I accept that knowingness as my truth. Wow, how powerful is that? I am capable of infinite possibilities because I am a divine emanation of the Most High. Take a breath, please. I speak forth a renewal to the foundation of my faith in the divine. I choose to create within me a new spirit, a clean heart full of love. My joy is restored within me. I love that I get to create my life. My journey continues with a renewed sense of purpose. My steps are guided by the divine whisper in my soul. Each step I take through my day is met with love and an ever-flowing bounty of possibilities. I keep my thoughts, my actions stay on the knowingness that I am creating a new world for myself. The desires of my heart are manifesting right here and now. My heart is open to infinite possibilities because I am vibrating with the One. I speak my truth into the universal mind of possibilities. My foundation has a new bond of mortar, protecting my mind, keeping it focused on my new reality of infinite possibilities. Take a breath, please. In gratitude for this renewal, for this divine freshness pouring in and around me, I give total thanks for the law of pure potentiality, which allows me to start anew with each and every day. From this place of potentiality, I release this spiritual mind treatment into the law of action, feeling the blessed assurance of the divine. I let it go and let it be so. One more breath, please. And just hold that feeling. Trust your knowing. Feel into this beautiful space of knowing you are one with your Creator, and your guidance is always present, calling you forward into more joy, more goodness, more abundance, more alignment.